Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. I'm Bobby Kuza in for Errol Lewis. Mayor Adams today weighed in on the horse carriage industry debate, calling on the city council to pass a ban on horse-drawn carriages in the city. Our Kelly Mena joins us now with more on tonight's top story. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Bobby. And unexpected news for animal rights activists earlier today, with the mayor throwing his weight behind banning this industry in Central Park. Earlier today, the mayor putting out a press release about his push to get the city council to pass legislation that would slowly phase out this industry. Citing inhumane conditions and safety issues, the bill has been unsuccessful for many years in sessions, but that could soon change. On Wednesday, the mayor called on the council to pass what is known as Ryder's Law, named after a horse that had previously passed out and died at Central Park. This new legislation, if passed, would phase out the industry by June of 2026. He also signed, the mayor, an executive order that would surge resources toward enforcement and oversight, like making sure drivers are following current regulations, like picking up and dropping off riders at designated areas and maintaining the health of the horses. The move comes just weeks after a spook horse ran through Central Park and a month after a 15-year-old horse named Lady collapsed and died in Manhattan. Also applauding this move is the bill's sponsor, City Councilman Bob Holden.
That last incident was a wake-up call to all of us. Had been our horse run free, what would have happened if it would have hit a child or a family member? It's about really humanizing our horses, and it's a public safety issue.
What I look at it, and many of the animal rights people look at it, is the horses are abused. They're working in all sorts of horrible conditions in the city of New York, pulling thousands of pounds of carriage and people, and in all kinds of terrible conditions.
And this legislation comes after that spooked horse incident a couple of weeks ago. The mayor had directed his first deputy mayor, Randy Mastro, to work on a solution, bringing together all stakeholders, including the Central Park Conservancy and the TWU Local 100 union that represent the drivers. You're seeing them right there at a protest earlier this year to try to save their industry. The union denounced the move earlier today by the mayor, who is facing a competitive re-election. The president, John Samuelson, denied that horses work in extreme weather and in horrible conditions.
I thought this is an absolute desperation move by a mayor who doesn't know how to keep commitments, and by a guy who's polling last, even as an incumbent in the mayoral race. They have not passed away because they're in the carriage industry. They passed away from circumstances that have nothing to do with their work in the carriage industry. Just like human workers pass away. It happens.
Samuelson said that about 270 or more workers would be impacted by this legislation if it were to get passed. As of today, there's about 21 sponsors. It's unclear if the city council speaker will support it. The bill has not been given a hearing as of today, but it has been introduced. A spokesman for the city council said that the bill is going through the legislative process, but also added Mayor Adams politically using it for his re-election campaign is opportunistic and not helpful. Bobby, so we'll see how this goes. I mean, obviously, this is a very charged issue, emotional issue here in the city.
I mean, you could cynically say that the mayor is trying to, use this as a campaign ploy, because we haven't really heard him talk about the horse carriage industry much in the past, have we?
Yeah, and this hasn't been something that he's prioritized, you could really say, or even taken a stand on since we've been covering him in his first term. So it was interesting that it's coming right now at a time where he's facing a very competitive re-election campaign. Many people would say he's behind. He's in the single digits when it comes to the polls. So this could be a ploy, some could say, to possibly bring in some more votes. And we know that the animal rights activists, this is a very big issue for them. Curtis Lewa, the Republican nominee, this is one of his biggest issues. So this could be maybe bring in a couple of votes. I don't think it's a big, huge push. I should also note that the president of the union that represents these horse carriages drivers said that they're definitely not going to endorse the mayor in his re-election bid, because they had been told since the mayor went into office that he would never go after their industry. He promised that he would work with them and that this would never be a solution for them as workers.
All right, Kelly Mena, thank you for that report. Also tonight, 2 of the 8 casino proposals in and around the city went bust today when the Community Advisory Committees considering their future voted them down. That means Caesar's Palace in Times Square and the Avenir in Hell's Kitchen will not go forward. New York One's Emma Barnett joins me now with more details on that story. Good evening, Emma.
Good evening, Bobby. 2 votes today determining the fate of those 2 casinos, one in Times Square and one by the Javits Center. In this case, the House doesn't always win.
The application has been disapproved.
2 separate casino proposals in Manhattan rejected. 4 out of the 6 members of both community advisory committees voted against advancing these proposals. The 2 yes votes in both cases from members appointed by the mayor and the governor. Mark Holliday, the chairman and CEO of SL Green Realty, the group overseeing the Times Square Caesar Palace casino proposal, walked up to the committee after the vote, calling it despicable.
Go run and hide. Because what you did, the benefits you denied this community and this city and state, you have to live with that history forever.
Dick Gottfried, a former New York State Assemblyman who was on the committee and voted no, told reporters congestion would make it more difficult to get in and out of Times Square.
Overwhelmingly, the residents of the surrounding area do not want it. And in addition, I think there's a very legitimate concern that a casino in the Times Square area would do serious damage to the Broadway theater business, which is an extraordinary gem and a very vital part of the New York economy and our culture.
As for the Avenir, it would have been near the Javits Center on 41st and 11th Avenue. Dino Fusco, the COO of Silverstein Properties, which was overseeing the project, says he is shocked by the result.
We're putting forth a project in a location which could really use this type of complex. Jobs, housing, a hotel, restaurants. These are all things that we heard from the community both in advance of putting together our proposal and then again at the public CAC meetings that were held over the past month.
The Avenir requested the vote be postponed before it happened, writing in a statement, quote, "Last night at 10:50 p.m., the Community Advisory Committee made a very significant request, and our team has not been given a chance to consider this request. This action taints the CAC process." So what we know about what's coming next is there are 6 other proposals that need to be considered. Once they are voted on by their respective community advisory board committees, that's when they're going to, the state of New York is going to decide whether or not they're going to grant them one of the 3 casino licenses that are available, Bobby.
Right. So these other ones that are left, I mean, the community advisory committees in each case could vote those down too, right? I mean, these might not be the only ones. So there may be a far more winnowed field that's left after we get through this.
There is no guarantee that any of them are going to pass. In order for one of these proposals to pass, you have to get 4 out of the 6 people on the community advisory committee to vote yes. What we saw today is 4 of the 6 people vote no. So it remains to be seen what happens with the remaining 6 proposals, 5 of which are in New York City and 1 is in Yonkers.
And was there like a sense of suspense with the vote today? Because on both of these proposals, I mean, it wasn't like there was universal opposition, right? There was plenty of people in the community who were in favor of them.
Yeah, you know, there wasn't necessarily a lot of suspense. No one really knew exactly what was going to happen, but I actually attended one of the public hearings for the Avenir. I was covering that about a week ago, and of the people who spoke in front of the Community Advisory Committee, 75% of them, by our tally and by the tally given to us, were in favor of this development. So in a sense, were people a little bit surprised that this didn't go through? Yes, you heard there Dino Fusco, who's the COO of Silverstein Projects, that this was definitely a shock for him. But at the same time, there were emails and calls that were being sent to this same advisory committee where people were able to express what they wanted to express to them. So we don't know exactly what was going on behind the scenes and what those calls were saying.
All right. Emma, thank you for that report. It's time now for a break. Coming up next, we will bring you the latest from the campaign trail today, including Democratic nominee for Mayor Zohran Mamdani securing another key endorsement. And later tonight, we'll take a closer look at proposed regulations to limit social media use for kids when I'm joined by a leading advocate. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
It's only a game. It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual.
When I come home late,
and a few generations.
you're always there.
And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Zohran Mamdani's boss in the State Assembly, Speaker Carl Hastie, finally issued his official stamp of approval for the mayoral frontrunner today. The pair haven't always seen eye to eye on budget issues, but they are aligned on backing tax hikes on the wealthy and expanding child care spending. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan joins me now with more on that story. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Bobby. And this early alliance with someone like Carl Hastie and then also the other legislative leader, Andre Stewart-Cousins, and now Governor Kathy Hochul, could put Zohran Mamdani's visions of providing free buses, universal child care, and a whole host of other issues more on the track to reality than just something that he says in a stump speech. Zohran Mamdani clinched support from all three leaders who are poised to negotiate next year's multi-billion-dollar state budget, adding Bronx Democratic Speaker Carl Hastie to his list of supporters.
The next mayor of the city of New York, Zohran Mamdani.
Hastie indicated the pair agreed on several policy proposals, like taxing the rich, shortly after Mamdani's June primary upset. But for months, he withheld an endorsement.
Just let people, come to their own, their own places. Typically, I don't endorse unless it touches my assembly district. He has a romantic view of what this city can be and should be. And, sometimes people want to be romance.
Not strangers, Hastie is Mamdani's leader in the 150-member Democratic-controlled chamber. They've disagreed in the past, like when Mamdani voted no on a 2023 state budget bill that also contained his pilot program for free MTA buses that expired in 2024.
We know each other well. We know each other's agendas well.
Hastie in his corner could help Mamdani's campaign promises see reality.
The free bus pilot program, Zohran and I worked on that together. We've been trying, I'd say over the years, to try to expand universal child care And I think it could be done.
State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins previously backed Mamdani and also favors a wealth tax. The alliance could pressure Governor Kathy Hochul into raising taxes on top earners. Earlier this week, she said she's still opposed.
There were certain areas where I said I disagree with him. I will always continue to reserve the right to disagree.
A state comptroller's report last month estimates an over $34 billion funding gap over the next 3 years. It's an issue Hochul and the legislature need to address, alongside an ever-increasing Medicaid and education budgets, without funding Mamdani's new ideas. Blueprints that Mayor Eric Adams criticized Wednesday, as the city also faces a $3 billion deficit next year.
He can't freeze rent in NYCHA. He can't freeze rent in Mitchell-Lamas. He can't freeze rent in places where individuals' rent is determined on their income. He can't do free buses. It costs $3 billion.
Also slamming the left for rhetoric he says leads to bad behavior.
There's a host of his supporters that are doing their job. There's a significant number of them, and too many, that come with this very negative, nasty energy and disrespectful.
And a Mamdani spokeswoman did respond to those comments from Adams criticizing Mamdani's supporters. She said, while Eric Adams continues to show he has no vision beyond serving himself, Zohran's agenda to make the city more affordable and deliver a city hall that works for the people is inspiring thousands.
Right. So, I mean, you would think now that Zohran Mamdani has the support of Carl Hastie and the governor and Andrea Stewart-Cousins, the Senate Majority Leader, well, now he can get all his proposals through Albany, but that's not really how it's going to work.
No,
right?
And especially with, I mean, pressures that already existed. I mean, just covering the past couple of budgets, over the last 5 years, it increased from below $200 billion to now over $250 billion. And there's other pressures such as cuts from the federal government, ever-increasing Medicaid. It increases by 10% every single year. So I asked Hastie, if you support increasing taxes on the wealthy, will that go to baseline funding of all these other programs that you're already on the hook for? Or are you willing to spend that capital on these new ideas to help the incoming mayor if it's Mamdani? And he said, you know, we still have 7 months to haggle this out and see how it works out. But that's going to be a real problem for the legislature, the governor, and Mamdani, and how they all work together.
Right. If he gets elected.
If he gets elected, right, big if.
Weeks out. All right, Bernadette Hogan, thank you for that report. And also on the campaign trail this evening, Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa both met separately with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. Our Dan Rivoli joins me now from Lower Manhattan with those details. Good evening, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Bobby. The meeting took place at Cipriani's on Wall Street. Topics of discussion: public safety. Cuomo wants to hire 5,000 new police officers, 1,500 of them in the subway, and jobs in the economy. Cuomo says that topic hasn't gotten enough attention in this race, and he talked about his pitch, for example, using city property for tech and manufacturing, city grants for startups and the like, and of course his opponent, the Democratic Socialist frontrunner for mayor, Zohran Mamdani. Cuomo said, as a socialist, Mamdani's ideas are antithetical to business, and brought up his remarks in recent years about defunding the police, calling it racist, questioning the validity of the jail system, and of course his support for decriminalizing prostitution. Now, when Mamdani has been faced with those past comments, he said, look, he is focused solely on affordability. So I asked Cuomo, well, what is your plan to help New Yorkers afford living in New York City? And Cuomo said his idea is just build more housing to bring down the rent. And then he went after Mamdani's core positions on affordability, calling them gimmicks, saying gimmick over and over. For example, his plan to freeze the rent on stabilized units. Cuomo said that would just raise the rents on the majority of apartments that are not rent stabilized. Here's more from Cuomo.
The answer is build affordable housing. One grocery store in a borough is nonsense. It's a gimmick. Freeze the rent on 25% of the rent stabilized units. It's a gimmick. Fast free buses for everyone. It's a gimmick.
Republican Curtis Sliwa also met with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. I caught up with him before that meeting, and I asked him what his message is, and he said, clean up New York, literally, with the World Cup soccer fans coming to the city and the region, that he wants the city to look better, make a better impression on all the visitors. Here's more from Curtis on that.
We got to clean up Manhattan. Obviously, the world will be watching the international gatherings here. There's flotsam and jetsam everywhere, garbage. We got to power spray the streets. We have to get the homeless people into safe shelters and the emotionally disturbed into mental health care hospitals and put a shine on the Big Apple. Because right now, it's not a place that you want the international community to see because we're not in good shape.
And I also asked Sliwa about Mayor Adams calling for an end to the horse carriage industry around Central Park. Sliwa, a longtime animal rights activist, and he welcomed Mayor Adams' support on that issue, even though Sliwa says him and Adams are like two scorpions in a brandy glass, if you want to imagine that metaphor. Sliwa also said he hopes Cuomo and Mamdani would also pledge to support a ban, an end to the carriage horse industry, saying it would be good to see all four major candidates for mayor on the same side of that issue, Bobby.
So Dan, Cuomo and Sliwa were meeting with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. Is that a situation where they're hoping for some kind of endorsement? Are they making their case to business leaders, hoping that they'll come out and publicly support their candidacy?
I think it's more just making your pitch to people who own businesses here in Manhattan and really deal with some tough issues about what the candidates would do if they are mayor. How would they help with businesses? You know, Curtis Sliwa talked about seeing businesses close in Manhattan because of congestion pricing, saying there's not a lot of foot traffic from people driving in. Of course, Cuomo has talked about the issue of public safety as a way to make sure businesses can thrive. People want to visit stores. People want to work at stores. So they're really just making their case to some, influential people in their neighborhoods.
All right, Dan Rivley, thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, Congressman Dan Goldman is pushing a bill aimed at expanding access to mental health treatment. We will bring you a report from Capitol Hill next. Stay with us.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost, and that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure, why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard. At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first, stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. More than 3 years after an infamous subway crime in which a woman was pushed to her death in front of an approaching train, Congressman Dan Goldman is making a new push for legislation to expand access to mental health treatment. Our Kevin Fry in our Washington, D.C. bureau spoke with Congressman Goldman, and he has more details. Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, good evening, Bobby. We got our first look at this legislation before other outlets. And this is, of course, the second time, though, he's introducing this bill. The question is, can it make any progress this Congress?
Congressman Dan Goldman relaunching a push to expand access to mental health treatment.
This bill would absolutely address not only public safety in the subways in New York City, but public safety writ large.
His bipartisan legislation, the Michelle Alyssa Go Act, is named after a 40-year-old woman who was pushed on the subway tracks to her death by a schizophrenic man in 2022. An incident that stoked concerns about subway safety and random acts of violence in the city. The bill would boost the decades-old limit on the number of inpatient psychiatric beds eligible for Medicaid reimbursement. Currently, Medicaid is not allowed to cover long-term stays for patients aged 21 to 64 in facilities with more than 16 beds. Goldman's bill would increase that restriction to 36 inpatient beds. The man who admitted to fatally pushing Go onto the tracks had been in and out of hospitals for years and reportedly complained to a friend that doctors kept discharging him before he was stable.
There is a disproportionate number of crime committed by people suffering from mental health illness. And if they can get the help they need, then that obviously will reduce their commission of crimes.
The bill's reintroduction comes amid a push by U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy to portray the city's subway system as especially dangerous.
The problem is that it's dirty. You have criminals, it's homeless shelters, it's insane asylums.
Actually reported subway crime fell this summer to its lowest level in 15 years. Goldman argues that if the Trump administration wants to make an impact, it should get on board with his proposal.
Medicaid should pay for those who can't afford it to get that treatment they need, which will benefit all of us, including those who ride the subways.
Now, as mentioned, this is the second time that the congressman has introduced this bill. Last Congress, it made very little headway. He does have Republican backing on this legislation already. Democrats and Republican lawmakers co-sponsoring, including Hudson Valley Congressman Mike Lawler. Go's father is also supporting this legislation. Bobby.
Kevin, let me ask you about a different story that we learned some reporting about tonight, that the Trump administration is pressuring federal prosecutors to bring charges against Letitia James, the New York State Attorney General, for mortgage fraud in the face of the fact that there does not appear to be enough evidence to bring charges, at least as determined by federal prosecutors.
Yeah, and this is reporting from ABC News that over the course of the last 5 months, with at least 12 people, 12 witnesses talking to the DOJ, there is still no evidence that she knowingly made false statements. And yet, according to ABC, the president and other top officials at the DOJ are pressuring the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia to bring an indictment, seek an indictment against her, going so far as the Federal Housing Finance Agency chair, or head, who has been one of the ones that's been kind of raising these various cases and allegations against individuals. He has reportedly leaned on the president to try to fire that U.S. attorney for not bringing charges as yet. And of course, this comes within the context that AG Tish James successfully brought that civil case against the president. And so this is only fed into accusations that the president essentially is on a retribution tour during his second term in office.
Kevin Fry in Washington, thank you for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, I'll be joined by a leading advocate to talk about new proposed regulations as New York cracks down on addictive social media feeds for children. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Earlier this week, State Attorney General Letitia James released guidelines for social media companies to follow in order to comply with the Safe for Kids Act that was signed into law last year. The law is intended to stop kids from becoming addicted to the algorithmic feeds on social media apps that are designed to grab their attentions. Joining us now to talk about the new rules and kids' relationship to social media is Muna Heaven. She is the Harlem chapter leader of Mothers Against Media Addiction. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bobby. Great to be here.
So let's take a step back and just explain what this legislation does, because this is a big deal. I mean, this would completely transform the way that kids interact with social media apps like TikTok and all the others, right?
Right. So I think that the big change is in terms of the content that a minor will be exposed to on social media platforms. And so what does that mean? It means that social media platforms are going to be restricted in the way that they're able to target kids under the age of 18 with algorithmic feeds without parental consent, and also nighttime notifications.
So with the algorithmic feed, that means if you're a kid under 18 and you log into TikTok or any other social media app, you're not getting fed the regular algorithm, right? You can only see, content from people that you follow, or sort of the chronological feed, right? I mean, it's a totally different interaction with the app.
Right. So what makes this a huge shift is right now when a child goes on, they may be receiving content from folks that they follow, but they're also receiving content from folks or the company that they do not follow, accounts that they do not know, that are targeting them, that uses all the information that the companies obtain about the child, and then they loop back and with ads and so on, really pit these children into the endless scroll. I like to call it the scroll to the bottom of the brain stem.
And then in addition, there is the overnight notification ban, right? I don't know if ban is the right word, but kids would not receive notifications in the overnight hours.
Right. So I think the key word here, Bobby, is default. So right now, the default is that children are fed content by accounts that they do not know, folks they do not know, right? And they also receive nighttime notifications during night time when they should be sleeping. With this law, that will no longer be the default. And so from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., the default will be no overnight notifications. Of course, that can change, but with parental consent.
So talk about that a little bit, because parental consent is a big deal, right? I mean, if the kid gets consent from their parent, they get them to sign off, then it bypasses this whole thing, right? This is all basically moot. So what is the message to parents? Because if this, if and when this law takes effect, which is still a ways off, kids are going to be coming to them and asking them to sign, check yes on this box in order to gain access.
Right. So what does that mean for parents? What does it mean for us? I mean, for me as a parent, as a mama parent, the idea is to educate other parents. It brings parents back into the conversation so that they weigh in on the content that their children are exposed to. And, we think that that's a good thing. The rules provide a mechanism for that. So first, the child has to approve the request for parental consent. So prong one deals with the child. After that, the consent verification from the parent would take place. And there are also countermeasures to that, Bobby. There has to be an option for the child or parent to be able to withdraw at any time. And for the parent to give their consent. My understanding is that, the parent can't say, well, I want to see the topics that are being researched. I want to see my child's history. Then I'll give, it's not conditional. There is no exposure of the child's content. Also good to know is that a child can't be penalized for not wanting to obtain parental consent and not wanting to have, not wanting to not be restricted. In essence, I'm sorry, did I mess up?
No, so they won't get dropped from the app, in other words, if they don't seek out parental consent, right?
What is also nice is that, let's just say that a child does not want parental consent. The child won't be punished. The child can continue to use the app as they are now.
And so a lot of this debate has hinged on the age verification, right? How do you determine that a user is 18 or older? And that's what these rules were designed to address, right? So talk about how the apps are now supposed to go about determining that.
Right. So, I mean, listen, I'm the first to admit that this is quite technical and sometimes there isn't the perfect answer. But as you know, children are being affected severely by this use. So we need to make an effort. The age verification process requires that social media companies have an age assurance method that has a high degree of accuracy, that testing is done every year, that those test results are maintained for 10 years. Kids that are 18 and over, there's verification methods for them. There's email, there's phone, there's video, and the list goes on. I would take this window, though, to say that the rules are now open for public comments, right, for the next 60 days up until December 1st. And this is where parents and the public industry leaders should really weigh in again on the proposed rules. I do believe that only by way of dialogue will we make our way forward.
So I'm sure that the social media companies are not pleased with the legislation and that they have been fighting. I mean, what happens now? Are there hurdles in order to get this legislation actually to the point where it's enacted? Because it was passed last year, but we're still a year plus out from it actually taking effect.
Right. So I think I understand your question in two parts. What, if anything, are the social media companies doing? And then what's the process? So I'll start with the second first. The process is that there's the window for public comments that goes until December 1st. After that, the AG's office has a year to finalize the rules, and then the law goes into effect 180 days after. What do social media companies, how do they feel about this? The answer is that they're probably not happy, but my response to that is, we're all parents, and loving our children is the lowest common denominator that really unites us, despite what you own, your social status, your affiliation, all the things, political affiliations, and so on. And so this is really, it's always an opportunity for all of us to come to the table and figure out what is the best way to provide guardrails for our kids.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Muna Heaven, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it is time now for a break. Coming up, we will turn back to the race for mayor when I'm joined by my weekly politics panel. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer.
I'm so honored to be a meteorologist here at New York One because as a Brooklyn kid, this is the station that I grew up watching.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are turning back to the race for mayor. This week, the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani, received 2 key endorsements from Governor Kathy Hochul and State Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie. Joining me now to talk about all of this and more is my weekly politics panel. Alyssa Katz is the executive editor of the nonprofit news organization The City, and joining us as he does every Wednesday is New York One political commentator Gerson Barrero. Thank you both for being here tonight. So it seems maybe the dominoes are sort of beginning to fall. We've got some prominent Democrats now coming out and endorsing Zohran Mamdani. Obviously, Kathy Hochul, the big one. So, Alyssa, what was your reaction to this? I mean, no surprise, really, that Hochul came out. Yeah.
Right. No, well, it was a little surprised. I mean, it was not a given that Hochul would turn out, or now today, Carl Heastie, the State Assembly Speaker, also endorsed Mamdani. But I think there is a very big difference in between state officials in New York, which is an overwhelmingly blue state, where Democrats can feel fairly confident about their continued control of the state, and the national Democrats, of course, the leaders of both being New Yorkers, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in Washington, who are still holding out because I think they're still very worried about the impression that the National Party is moving so far to the left that your average American out there across the country would not be able to vote for a Democrat. So they're still holding back.
It's very, I think all of that is legitimate. It goes down to basic survival in politics. 2026, she's trying to avoid a primary. She needs, any person that wants to be governor of New York State has to have 5 boroughs. That's been proven, the numbers are there. With a phenomena like Mamdani, she cannot afford to have the left or socialists. I don't care what they say about the socialists, and they're afraid. They're more afraid of socialists than they are of, the criminal in chief, who's now in, I hope he stays in London somewhere in there. They give him a kingship. But the fact is that it's all political. And nothing to do with her belief or whether she believes. She just saw the writing on the wall. This guy has a movement. He's mobilizing in 48 days. He'll have a force of 90, 100,000 people turning the vote out. I just think it's survival. And in the case of Carl Heastie, When was the last time you heard Carl Hastie even say hello? The guy doesn't speak. I think, you know, he walks by the press and doesn't say anything. I think he uses breath mints when he goes to talk to them because he doesn't open his mouth. The fact is that he's a nobody, and I'll say that. Carl is known in his district, has the largest black district. Yes, he has the title, but he really doesn't take issue with anything. Andrew Stewart Cousins, as the majority leader, already endorsed Mamdani before he did, right? So she's already at least made approaches. I think these endorsements don't mean anything. The public is ahead of them. Definitely they were ahead of them, the Democrats, in the primary, and they'll be ahead of these clowns, all of them, because they don't mean anything.
But then there's the question, I mean, setting aside what it means for the election, but now if he's got the endorsement of Carl Hastie and Kathy Hochul and Andrew Stewart Cousins, you might think, well, now all the legislative leaders are behind him, now he can get his agenda enacted in Albany, but that's not necessarily the case,
yes,
right?
No, I think that the endorsements do send a strong signal that the legislative leaders and Hochul will give him something next year if he's elected mayor, right? Maybe it's the child care funding, maybe it's funding for the free buses, which, you know, he's a state lawmaker now. He's part of that world, right? And I think that they know they have to make good on something. The harder question is when you have state budgets and city budgets that have massive deficits in future years. We're talking multi-billion dollars, and you have federal funding cuts that are coming like an express train toward us. And we're not going to get a reprieve from a lot of these on Medicaid, food stamps, housing, a lot of the social service benefits the state counts on, block grants and so on. Like, they're going to have to work together to figure out how to navigate that stuff.
But they never work together because they're going to have elections. They're going to have to be reelected from Hochul on down. And, you know, people talk about money. It doesn't grow on trees. It doesn't grow from the ground up. You have to pick people's pockets. Who are those people? Us, the taxpayers. And they always have a problem. They promise right now it's all goody. Oh, no. Well, you know, I was surprised. Carl Hastie, oh, no, I'm for the whole thing, and I believe this, and I believe that. Yeah, I want to see you go after the billionaires' money. He didn't do it during the Cuomo years because there were people who were reasonable. He's going to have business people that he depends on to be able to stop him. So it's all talk, and we'll see next year what they produce. I think it's just talk.
So you're talking about the fact that this could benefit, the endorsement could benefit Hochul in 2026, but also it's handing Elise Stefanik, who may very well be the Republican nominee, I mean, it's handing her a cudgel to beat her with, right? Because now she can try to tie Hochul to Mamdani as being this extremist.
She can. Now, it'll be very interesting to see how the next chapter plays out with Hochul, because the dynamic we're, of course, seeing with Mamdani is that as much as Cuomo or, you know, never mind Stefanik and the Republicans try to throw at Mamdani that he's a menace who's going to destroy New York City, the poll after poll shows that most New Yorkers don't believe that. Now, you know, things may change, you know, if he's mayor and people have frustrations with him. But in the meantime, you know, the question is, does Hochul have the same kind of ability to persuade people that she can run with these kinds of policies and do it in a way that keep people safe, keep New York affordable? She's betting, and she said this in her op-ed endorsing Mamdani, that this is where they're aligned. They want to make New York affordable for people. So it's hard to argue against that.
This is too much up in the air. We have 48 days before New Yorkers vote the 111th mayor, whoever that person is. We think it's Mamdani. But it could be anybody, because anything can happen tomorrow, mañana, next week, 48 days. So anything can happen to destroy this. Maybe we'll wind up with Curtis Lewa as mayor, and nobody can tell me that you actually know that he won't. But already thinking ahead and talking all of this stuff and saying and calculations, the only guy who really now is concerned is Hakeem Jeffries, who he sees wings. Never mind Stefanik, he sees wings on his speakership just flying away. That's who it's going to affect, and that's real. Chuck Schumer doesn't have to worry till 2028, so I don't know why people are bothering with almost, in my opinion, one of the most effective legislators, politicians that I've ever seen in my lifetime. That's Chuck Schumer. So all of this nonsense that we talk about, and we have to talk, this is the part of the business, political business, to speculate. It's all speculation. We don't even know if Governor Hochul will decide, I'm not going to run for re-election. Does anybody can tell me that that's really a no? She gets sick, or she decides she's going to go with the Grange. Who knows? It's too premature. Let's get over the first, November 4th, and let's see what happens then. Because I don't believe, by the way, worst thing that could happen, are you going to ask about Eric Adams staying in the race now.
We got a
Who
lot more to
cares?
talk about. Yeah.
Oh, you do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
you hold your thought.
Okay.
We gotta take a break.
Because I still don't understand why people are so concerned whether he stays or leaves. Who cares?
A lot can happen in 2 months, like you said. We're going to talk about it when we come back. I'll have much more with this panel when we return.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Flores Fire Design House. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. Spectrum helps me stay online. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. Without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
Get up to 4 months free when you bundle award-winning internet. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by this week's politics panel, Alyssa Katz of the nonprofit newsroom The City, and New York One political commentator Gerson Barreros. So the mayor's race, I think at this point, doesn't seem that Eric Adams is going to be taking a job with the Trump administration, which was all we were talking about for a couple of weeks there. Although Eric Adams continues to confound us with whether or not he is considering getting out of the race at some point. But as of now, it seems like the status quo is that all these guys are staying in the race, right? Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, Curtis Sliwa, and Zohran Mamdani, who's up by 21 points in this latest poll when they're all still in the race.
I mean, just to be clear, the ballot is final. The ballot, you know, and Adams is actually on two party lines at once. As one party line, it is, I think it's safe and affordable and stop anti-Semitism all as one ballot line. He can't get out. He can say I'm not running, but if anyone wants to vote for him, the few people who are going to do that can do that. Look, I think he's got a few months in City Hall where he both needs to keep raising money for his campaign, for the super PAC that's supporting him. He needs to raise money for his legal defense fund. You know, he needs to make a show that he's serious and that he's also innocent, as he claims, of the federal charges that had been brought against him and then dismissed. And, you know, I think that he's really, as we reported recently at the city, you know, he's really using that remaining time in office to really make sure that some of his biggest backers, particularly real estate developers, are getting their projects fast-tracked forward, you know, getting city permits to do this, getting their foundations in the ground. And I think that's what we can see above the surface. I'm sure a ton more is happening behind the scenes. So he's just continuing to press forward like this is just a normal mayoralty.
Parachuting on that, which is a parachute he wants out of City Hall, is for the business and real estate people to actually get this package that I know it's being worked on. I know because I've talked to people that are involved in discussing a parachute that he gets out for 5 years is what I understand that they put on the table. in which it's a high salary. I'm not going to say the amount because the negotiations have proceeded, but it isn't enough for him to do it. Frank Corones, as I have it, is the person putting it together, which is his chief counsel, has been his, guru, the person he trusts. And that's the only way, but it wouldn't guarantee that he gets out of the race because, as Lisa said, he's already there, people can vote. And he's not going to look like a fool, say, I don't want this. And he's going to deliver in that 100 days. What he could do is say, I'm pulling out of the race to concentrate in my last 100 days on all these projects that I won't be able to do in my second term because I'm not running. That you could hear that coming from him, and he will look like, to some people, oh my God, that's great. To me, he'll go, boo, you stunk. The problem is here that we don't know. Eric thinks for himself. Eric is very independent, very calculating, and wants to have a fallback when, even though he's got pensions galore, he wants more money. He's tasted the good life. There's things in the package that I'm not at liberty to say because I don't know if he'll ever accept it or not. But that would make his life really nice for the next 5 years with this organization that is supposed to be an organization to do public good.
Just to add one more thought to this is that, today the mayor's management report came out, which is an annual report about how the city is doing. And actually, the report is pretty good. And what's really remarkable is that, if Adams hadn't had these corruption charges, not to mention the investigations of numerous people in his circles, he actually would be running for a second term pretty strongly with some accomplishments in recovery from COVID to show for it, but that's not the situation.
Let me ask you, just about a minute left, but he announced today this horse carriage ban that he's going to be pushing for, which is like a throwback to 2013 when it was a major issue in the mayor's race with Bill de Blasio and Christine Quinn. I mean, what is this about?
Your guess is as good as mine. It is a blast from the past. I mean, look, it's, it certainly could be about Adams trying to stick it to Curtis Sliwa, who is famously an animal rights advocate. It's certainly, there's some voters care about the carriage horses, but is there someone funding Adams who's putting him up to it? I have no idea, but that's what happened certainly with de Blasio.
All right, guys, we are going to leave it there. Alyssa Katz, Herson Barrero, thank you both so much for joining us tonight. And that is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great evening. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Flores Fire Design House. We are a full production wedding and event company that focuses on florals. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They were here the same day, had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. And if I'm contacting a merchant via email or placing an order online, without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
One more row.
Spectrum is reliable, they're committed, they're fast, and they really take care of me as a business owner. Last year, when the really bad hurricane came through, our internet stayed the entire time. One of the businesses down the street, she was like, wait a minute, how are you still online? And I was like, Spectrum, baby. You gotta get Spectrum.
Get award-winning internet for your business. Up to 4 months free when bundled. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for